Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to another episode of Startup Talks. We are joined today by a very uh, concrete and consecutive hustler to the heart, Mr. Zohare and Haider. He's the founder of Jalebi.io. He's a serial entrepreneur who founded other companies as well, especially Digital Street, Funa in Pakistan, and he's been with Acumen as well and did fundraising for a social project in Thar in Pakistan. So Zohair, thank you very much for coming here on Startup Talks. How are you doing, my friend?
I am better now than I was exactly a year ago.
Congratulations on getting into Techstars. How does it feel?
Um, I was just talking to one of my fellow founders last night. We were here in the office till about 4 in the morning.
Mhm.
And just suddenly in the middle of my work, I turned back to him and I said, dude, Techstars. And he just responded to me that with a very serious face and just said, I'm still trying to process it.
Mhm.
And he's raised $500,000 and he's got a running business.
Uh-huh.
I think he summarized it best for all of us. We're all really still trying to process it. It's different when you do a program which is remote, and
Mhm.
it's something else when you're physically in person because you really get to kind of read that 80% body language that gets missed out. So I'll let you know in about a month how I feel. Right now, I'm just
You're still taking it in.
yeah, it's
Acha.
really something else.
So, Zohair, you've been an entrepreneur ever since. I mean, I looked at your profile. You've been founding companies left, right, and center every couple of years. You are a half human and half digital being. So, what's the story behind that?
Thank you very much. To be honest, I don't really term myself a hustler. I think there's hustle culture that I feel like maybe drives people in a very, I guess, in a different direction than I see myself. I guess very quickly to kind of give you a quick snapshot of my own journey and how I kind of ended up where I am right now. Born in Lahore, grew up in Islamabad, American education most of my life, went to the US for my undergraduate, came back, earthquake happened, did some relief work in the northern areas, met with Jacqueline Novogratz, who was doing a tour to look for housing investments. I was a tour guide. We camped out for 3 nights, and I guess they liked what I was selling as a person. And a few months later, they offered me a job. I hope they don't regret it. And I shipped off to Karachi with 2 suitcases. I'd been to Karachi once in my life before that. I always thought that Islamabad was the epitome of Pakistan. I realized that Islamabad doesn't even scratch the surface of Pakistan. It's actually like it's a pimple on Pakistan because it's completely separate.
Yeah.
And we live a very myopic life there. And I realized the complexities and the diversity and the beauty of Pakistan outside of Islamabad. I think it's unfortunate that I didn't do that sooner. But I think Thar and the experience with Acumen was really kind of the turning point for me, or the first real moment in my life where I realized what I didn't realize at that time, but I think it kind of sowed the seed for what I was going to become, because that was really my first experience of building a company. As an entrepreneur, I was an employee, I was a portfolio manager, but my job was basically to take a 2-page portfolio or concept note rather on low cost irrigation for farming poor farmers in Thar, and the most destitute of farmers, by the way, in almost the world. Um, and basically build a microfinance enabled drip technology company which imported low cost drip technology from India, and into Pakistan, and sold it to communities where half were Muslim and half were Hindu. Again, another like sort of mind blowing situation that I didn't realize that, it's so much diversity in even the religious context. Um, I think just kind of zipping forward from there, I some circumstances personally that I'd rather not disclose here led us to move from Karachi. My wife and I just gotten married in 2007, and so I'd spent about a year and a half, just shy of 2 years, with Acumen doing this work. And I was basically just about to sign the papers, get some equity in the company Microdrip, which we had built, and then just life had a different plan, and we basically shipped back to Islamabad and tried to start again. My wife had a great job at MTV. She's a Fulbright scholar, master's in fine arts from the top art school in the world. So, we were like kind of riding it. We were like, yeah, our lives are going to be great, And then, yeah, just completely shattered. We went back to Islamabad. I got a job with a fintech startup out of Lahore. Great business model. Again, for me, it's always been about social impact and kind of working. I didn't realize it then. I think at a DNA level, I've always wanted to participate at a grassroots level, but never come to terms with it because, you kind of live a privileged life and you feel, there's a bit of guilt as well because you feel like so many people don't have what you have and you want to try and participate. But I thought that, if nothing else, I could contribute in some other ways, with my time, my energy, my intelligence, if I have any. And I think with the fintech startup was, it's a great opportunity. Again, we were going to be enabling the unbanked in Pakistan, but unfortunately that startup didn't succeed. They ran out of funding. Then I took a bite of the humble pie and took a huge pay cut, and a job came my way because I was jobless for a few months, and Y-Tribe was launching in Pakistan at the time. And I got this great opportunity. I was about to get hired in a sales role. And then when I had the final interview with the CEO, it was a fantastic interview, basically annihilated my career history at that point, up till that point, and basically, sort of ripped it apart and said, so you worked for a car company, you worked for a broke company, you did this, and basically just completely threw me on the floor. And then basically, as he was leaving the room, he just said, "Enjoy your tea and thank you for coming." And I was like, okay, well, that's that, back to the job market again. And then 2 minutes later, a young lady who's no longer with us, I'm sorry to say, she lost her life. Fantastic woman who used to work with me. She came and offered me a job and basically to work with the CEO directly. Somehow he liked what I was selling, and it was more appropriate that I would work directly with him. And I had this amazing opportunity to basically work in a project management capacity to build and materialize and project manage and launch Y-Tribe in Pakistan. I'd done similar work before because my first job in Pakistan was with Nortel. So I was a basically a project sort of a manager in the sense, working with all the teams. Ufone was doing a major expansion back then. It was 2005. And anyway, so great opportunity. Then as the company launched, then I moved into a marketing and a PR role. And then I sort of, kind of from there evolved into social media. Social media was kind of, I think at that time, this is 2009 we're talking about. So, corporate social media wasn't really a thing. I mean, telcos were using social media as a way to sell, discounted minutes. And that was about it. That was the universe. Otherwise, it was just, it was social chatter really. Yeah. I'm very proud of a couple of accomplishments. I pioneered using social media as a customer service tool in Pakistan. I'm pretty certain it was across all industries, but definitely in telco, there was no concept of this. I used to talk a lot about it, do presentations, and help transfer knowledge about like how you can use customer service as a way to really kind of deepen your relationship with customers and harness new relationships and solve problems. We developed this fantastic business model where we would prioritize complaints coming on Twitter and fast track them into the call center, get issues resolved because the world was watching. We had this fantastic case study with Marvi Maiman where she complained one day and within 2 hours because of some of our community who came and pinged me and the company, and we got our thing solved and we got this negative tweet and this positive tweet, and it was, fantastic story. Anyway, so I worked with the group. So Y-Tribe, for anyone who doesn't know, was owned by Qatar Telecom at the time that was named. And I got this amazing opportunity with someone I'd worked with at the group level of Y-Tribe. So Y-Tribe was headquartered in Bahrain, had operations in Philippines and Jordan as well. And I got this great opportunity with someone from the Y-Tribe group level to come and work at the QTEL group level in 2011, 2012. And I wasn't going to say no. I was looking for a way to kind of get out to the Middle East, explore, increase my experience. I feel like Pakistan I'd hit a glass ceiling at that point. Like in a sort of a senior manager role, about 7-8 years of professional experience. And I felt like it was time for me to kind of, make a mark elsewhere. But I didn't want to just go, take a low-paying job and, just for the sake of going. It had to be a good, smart move. So waited a few years and looked for good opportunities. And then it just kind of came knocking from within the same organization. It was an amazing role to work with a transformative team, a new division that was basically building in a strategy around disruptive and innovative technologies that were affecting the business model for telcos, like WhatsApp and digital media and things like that. And so they were kind of looking at, should we do something, not do something, compete, partner, whatever. I won't get into the details of that, but basically the opportunity was about a year long at the time. I saw QTEL rebrand into Uredu Group. We worked with the internal comms on that as well. So, got a lot of exposure, but I think Qatar wasn't really kind of exciting for me at the time. So I got this fantastic opportunity. Now I'd spent about 5.5 years with the group now collectively, and I got this amazing opportunity to work with the British Council based out of Dubai, basically heading their digital operations across South Asia. So it was a transformation role, brand alignment, working with the head office and regional leadership roles, tremendous exposure, lots of traveling and everything. I think about 2 years into that role, and I think something just snapped in me. I think something just changed. I remember I was sitting in my kitchen. We had this tiny little IKEA table in our kitchen at the apartment we used to live in, and we had this fantastic view of Sheikh Zayed Road, in the trade center area. Great view of the Burj. Really kind of amazing. And where I was sitting, I had this perfect and absolutely unobstructed view of the first interchange in Sheikh Zayed, on Sheikh Zayed Road, where you see traffic coming from Abu Dhabi, Al Ain, Sharjah, etc. When you really sit there and you kind of look at it, like just really focus on the movement, not just the cars or anything, but just the movement, it really tells you about the economy of a place, right? Like the more movement there is on the roads, the more people are there, the more money is being spent. And so it really kind of gets your mind, and it becomes this sort of, this thing that just starts, I don't know, it just kind of triggered this thought in me. And I said, I really need to do something of my own now. And by this time, and I haven't talked about Funa at all, it kind of runs in parallel in my story, but I started Funa in 2005. And at this point, I was kind of really itchy feet for doing something on my own. And I thought, I think I'm getting tired of working for other people, but I just don't know what my path is next. I don't know how I'm going to live in Dubai, because I really like my life here. It's comfortable, it's great, convenient, and everything. But I don't want to give this up. So how do I do that? Because I can't earn money the way that I am in a job with the building my own thing. I don't think I have it in me. I never really thought that much of myself. And I saw this ad on Facebook or something for the Websummit in Dublin in 2014. And I clicked it, filled in the form, didn't really think anything of it. Startup was a very new word at that time as well. And I got this email a few weeks later, I think, and they're like, you've been shortlisted to come and showcase at Dublin. We'd like to do a screening call, etc. And I was like, wow, I've been shortlisted. I didn't know that there was going to be a huge cost attached to it, but that's the way it works, right? I was naive at it. I had no idea. And so I was so excited. I told my wife, and she's like, oh, this is great, fantastic, okay. So I had this call with these Irish people, fantastic, really cool. Asked me about my idea, and I said, this is what I'm working on. It's a food directory for Pakistan. We have the biggest directory listing in Pakistan. We're bigger than Foodpanda at the time, but we weren't doing delivery, of course. It was just content and information. So they're like, yeah, perfect, great. You're good to go, and we'll send you all the details and everything. I spent a pretty good amount of money on the ticket, the booth and everything. And I even got my developer, my buddy at that time, Jawad, who works at Keep Trucking now, to fly over. Never traveled out of Pakistan. He got a passport for the first time in his life for this trip. The following year, I took his sister, who was also working with me, to go to Turkey for Startup Istanbul, but that's another story. Anyway, so we're at Dublin, third day, end of the conference. We're in this big amphitheater, and Bono and all these fantastic people, Dana Brunetti, who's the producer of House of Cards, they're all on this panel. And I'm spacing out because I'm like, 3 days I've been here, 25,000 people at this conference. And it's just awe-inspiring, We were exhibiting as well, and we got to meet a lot of people. Mudassar Sheikha was also in the neighborhood exhibiting as well. And I spaced out, and I was like thinking to myself, I mean, this is great. We've spent all our money on this booth, and I'm a salaried guy, and how do I do this? I know what I need to do, but I don't know how to do it. I'm just completely at a loss. I come from, my father has, given us a very comfortable and a privileged life, but I'm not asking for money from family. I have to do it myself. I have to figure out a way. And Funa is a joke. It's a funny word. People look at it and they're like, what is that? And how am I going to go and raise money for that? So then I just turned to Jawad and I said, Jawad, if we started a digital agency, what would we call it? And he just turned to me without batting an eye. He said Digital Street, because I used to hoard domains, and digital.st was one of the domains I had. I had 100 or so. And it's just amazing, just kind of seamlessly, it's like a thought entered my mind and it just transferred into his, and we just completed a sentence. And the idea was born, and in 2 months I returned to Dubai, called up some friends, got together a few people, and Digital Street came to life. And fast forward now 6 years, 6.5 years. I left the British Council in
So, so,
2018. Sorry.
so, so
Yeah.
Funa came into being, went to Web Summit, right? And at Web Summit, it totally flipped over into Digital Street.
No. So Funa was always the end game.
Yeah,
Digital Street was a means to the end.
yeah.
Digital Street was the way that I understood I could utilize my existing knowledge and skills to monetize instantly without having to go out and do something tremendously new, build something or whatever. I could basically sell my skills and my capabilities and put together, like, from freelancers, graphic designers, and web developers. I've run those teams before, so I knew how to. I just thought, if I want it as a client, as a brand, I'm sure there are others who will want it. And at the time, it wasn't novel. It was novel to go and build a digital agency. The idea of digital as a skill in an agency was still pretty new. JWT and Ogilvy and all these companies were still trying to figure out how to do this whole social media thing.
Yeah.
They were still using like flyer content. I mean, some still are actually, unfortunately, still using flyer content on Facebook posts, which is jarring to the eyes and the mind. But anyway, that's for a different topic. I thought I had what it took. I built an organic social media brand presence for Y Tribe, and I did it at a regional level for British Council, and I had like teams and just so much data points that I could really kind of build on, and strategic understanding and exposure. I thought that's something I can monetize. And so basically then, we just went to market with that. And the idea was that Digital Street would just generate some money that could pay for the people that would ultimately be building Funa. Because for me, it was always about the F&B industry, and about giving visibility to restaurants and giving people access to information. And, just that was always it since 2005, since Funa came into being, since the domain was acquired. That was always the vision. It's just technology took too long to catch up to the idea. And by then I was on a different path, and then by then the industry had kind of evolved, and so the need for Funa was no longer as relevant. But I was just just so stubborn and just so stuck to my thing that I was like, nee, you gotta do this, even though nobody believes in it and nobody thinks it's valuable, and there's no way to monetize it either. Just somehow I thought, just I'm a stubborn guy, and my dad taught me to be like fixed on an idea. He's an ex-fighter pilot, and you just when you have a vision, you just lock onto it, and that's it until it's solved. So they ran in parallel, and it was funny because as Funa became this giant like elephant and kind of draining money from us, it started to kind of reduce in weight because we started shedding resources and moving people into Digital Street. Digital Street started to grow. I mean, we put in $100 to launch the company, hosted a dinner at Cinnamon in Islamabad, got all the pro-Pakistani and friends from the different industries to kind of do this thing. That's how I knew to do things, right? The PR and media guy, have an event, launch it, make an announcement, and get some coverage. And then we invested about $10,000. 6 months later, my wife was at that time kind of unhappy. She was working in an art gallery, and she wanted to kind of do something, and we were kind of sort of getting itchy feet to do our own thing. And I think Digital Street, by that time, we'd kind of done some sort of informal service delivery for people in Pakistan, a little bit in UAE. And we thought, let's license it. It seems like there's potential for us. We licensed it, put in about $10,000, the cost of building a company, licensing and all of that.
Yeah.
And then that's it. We started running. We were basically break even from pretty much the time we started, except for the cost of capitalizing the company. We broke even as a company a year and a half later. And we crossed $1 million US revenue, I think about 3.5, 4 years in. And I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it is when you're like, working month to month and hoping that you can pay salaries. I think Funa just started to dwindle at that point, right? I think Funa was great. Funa's purpose at that point became the singular vision that I had locked onto that would basically help me transition from my life as a professional career, as an employee at the British Council, into the startup world, because it was something I believed in so deeply, and I needed something like that to kind of like a life vest. I was finishing my last days at British Council in August 2018. I had gotten accepted into the first batch of NIC Karachi. Shah Jahan was kind enough to let me participate in the first cohort as a remote founder. I was basically shuttling between Dubai, and I was so excited. I would come back to Karachi almost every second first or second month. So a lot of money going out of the pocket, but just I was like, I need to throw myself into the deepest part of this hive and really just immerse myself. I can't do this dancing around the fire anymore. I have to just commit. And Digital Street gave me a foundation because it had revenue, it was running, it was paying a salary to Sophia, my wife, and she's the managing director and the boss of the business. So she continues to run it. So it kind of gave me this cushion to be able to sort of figure out what I needed to do next in my life. And Funa was kind of that thing. I thought Funa would be the thing, but ultimately realized that Funa was again helping me get to a point where through NIC I would meet my lead advisor, Ali Samir Usman, who's the CEO at TPLE Ventures at the time. And then things changed. And that's where kind of the seed of Jalebi started to kind of be sown. Ali first attempted to kind of get me to separate from Funa by saying, let's work on this model a little bit. And I'm coming to Dubai and I'm going to move there. And, I want to work with you. And, I was like excited. I was like, finally, somebody who actually has credibility is interested in what I'm trying to do. Little did I know that he had a different plan altogether. But I love him for it. He really, I think he's one of the first people in my life who I met and instantly we clicked, but I think there's tremendous respect for him, but also he kind of instantly understood how to put a wedge between me and a long time love of mine that I was having a hard time letting go of. He just figured out a way to do that and somehow helped me pivot. So basically Funa was what transformed into Jalebi, because we shifted from a B2C to a B2B business model and completely. So, I mean, they're separate companies essentially, but I think it was kind of the kernel for me was always F&B. I love food. I'm a big on food experiences. And I think for me, it kind of was like, how can we make this better? How can we make this whole thing better? This whole thing that we enjoy, one of the three things in life that we need most. Anyway, I'll take a break here because I've been rambling for.
You can have a sip of water if you want. Now,
Yeah.
Zohair, you are among very tiny number of people who's actually got support from the other half, right? And you don't see a lot of founders with that kind of an input, which is great actually. Now,
By other half, you mean by my wife, by my spouse?
Yeah.
Oh my God, absolutely. I couldn't have done any of this without her. I mean, absolutely.
So
she helped me create the name. Just yeah.
When I saw it for the first time, I like, Jalebi, what the hell is this all about, man? Right?
Like most people.
So Zohair, so all of this finally transformed into Jalebi, and you got into Techstars. Techstars is like a dream come true for many, right? For every founder. So I'm not going to ask you what it feels like, but what's Jalebi all about? What is there in that Jalebi or Imarti of yours, right? That Techstars bought into.
So I mean, I won't go into the details of it. We're still we're doing a kind of a stealth rehash of the business model, but in a nutshell, basically, we're building a B2b platform. The idea is that we basically create this single touch point for food businesses, as we call them, not restaurants, because food businesses can be home-based, can be cloud kitchens or whatever, any commercial food business, to be able to manage and sort of streamline their entire kitchen operation, right? But the kitchen operation starts from where raw material comes in, that becomes inventory, to how it transforms into a recipe, which then becomes a menu that is a monetizable commodity that then connects into sale touch points, whether it's aggregators or POS or dine-in or website or mobile or call center, whatever, to deal flow and financial management and data analytics, right? Now, what I've just described is basically, as most would say, well, Micros and Oracle do that, and Gloria Foods does that, and XYZ does that. And what they do is all of that, but what they don't do is what we're doing, which is we're looking at the entire market segment that none of them are looking at. All of these businesses, they, for the most part, focus on established and growing businesses, right? They look at businesses that have acumen, knowledge, and understanding or wherewithal, and they're able to pay maybe a monthly subscription fee, or they're able to monetize the platform that is providing the service within 14 to 30 days, or maybe even 3 months, with some exceptions. We're looking at the 70% that are completely overlooked. We're looking at the businesses that don't have the wherewithal, don't have the capacity, the knowledge, the money, or even the appetite to be able to pay a fixed fee every month. Our business model is fundamentally different. We've inverted the pyramid on this, and we're basically looking at a kind of a micro, small, medium. I know it's very popular now. It seems like everyone's kind of looking at this, but that's really where the critical mass is. And I think if I reflect on some of my old experiences when I worked with a fintech company as well, it was always about the bottom of the pyramid. It was always about the low income groups, and how do you enable them and give them the capability without being blindsided. So we use this phrase that we're a Slack style platform. And I think the key in that is really kind of something that gets missed out a lot, is that the goal of Jalebi is to be this reliable platform for food businesses that are trying to survive and grow. But that if they don't have core revenue protected, we should not abandon them, right? And I feel like when you have a SaaS business and you look at monetization instantly, and you have this 10, 15, 30, $50 sort of subscription fee, you're kind of doing that, right? And I mean, no offense to anybody who does that and has a successful model, but you can't bring these people into the digital ecosystem. And I mean, just by virtue of my own experience, I feel like I've kind of done this long enough that I feel like I have an idea that to reduce friction for people who are kind of otherwise averse to it, you really have to kind of go further towards them until they're actually warm enough to come to you. There's this concept that I'm really always very fascinated by. It's a book and a concept actually called Future Shock by a man named Alvin Toffler. He wrote about this in the 60s. It was a small video on YouTube as well. It was really bizarre video, but if you look between it, you kind of understand that the basic thesis is that the future shock is the state in which technology evolves faster than people's ability to keep up with it. And I think that really has a very beautiful kind of dichotomy in it, that most economies and most emerging markets don't evolve fast enough because the critical mass is not able to come along, right? It's always like the top 1%, 5% that it caters for. And then there's a cascading effect that just fades as it kind of goes into the distance. And I really want to kind of work the other way. And it's a long tail strategy. And I think for Techstars, to kind of answer your question, I don't think it's Jalebi or the business model that really kind of did it. And we're learning this as we're going through the program. They're really just focused on the founders. And I think that for what them, and I was talking to, again, the same guy I was talking to last night. He's actually here right now. He's like, we really have to give ourselves some credit, because millions our determination to do something, and it might not be the thing that we actually get in for, because they're already prepping us and saying, look, you guys need to be prepared. You might have to do a major pivot, and a lot of startups that go through Techstars end up pivoting, and that's okay, because it's not the idea that's important as much as it is your propensity to actually do it where there's good product market fit. There is a clear go-to-market strategy, and there is a demand for what you're trying to sell ultimately, right? And now, because, just for context, we actually got into the Sharjah venture studio called S3 about 3 months ago in July. So, we've been doing market fit and go-to-market strategy for the last 3-4 months. We've been talking to like small businesses in Sharjah, and we've actually onboarded our first customers as well. And I think that we've kind of understood what our kind of opportunity is, but we've got a lot of work to do. And so I've put together or managed to kind of inspire, I suppose, like a great team, an amazing, my co-founders are everything right now for me. I'm basically just a talking head. They're the ones who are actually doing all the work, to be perfectly honest. I'm just the stubborn guy who just kind of holds on. And I think for Techstars, really, they just saw cohesion in a great team. And I'm very proud of my team. We're all kind of in the same state in our lives. We're all kind of, almost 20 years of professional experience. We've got some kids, families settled, and we're just kind of trying to find our thing now, and we found something together, I suppose. They saw team cohesion. They saw founders that are really kind of purpose-driven, and that's it. They called us to Riyadh, and we basically kicked off the accelerator here, which is in partnership with the Ministry of Communications and IT. So we're actually sponsored by the government of Saudi Arabia. And Raid Ventures, which is one of the most prominent, investors in the Middle East. We got a tile with our logo on it. I'm happy to give you a quick tour of the office as well, with our name on it. And, just, I, I get choked up thinking about it, just,
Chale,
it's,
Chale, it's great that you're there. I'm sure this is something uh, either people will envy you or they'll praise you for it, right? That you've made it that far. Now, moving away from your startup scene a little bit, you've had your fair share of slack through the past 20 years, right? You also write quite a bit on LinkedIn, right? You wrote something recently about the unsettling lie of entrepreneurship, right? So, because a lot of people they come to me and they come to me for advice as well. I tell them, listen, bro, you have to be ready to fail. If you're not ready to fail, then don't jump into this thing because you'll either be mentally broken or so heartbroken that you'd probably never want to do anything again ever, right? So and it takes a lot of guts to really fall down and get up again, right? It's better to fall forward than to fall backwards. So what's the can you elaborate on that? Why is it such a big lie then?
I'm probably going to upset a lot of people by saying this.
You don't have to
But
share your personal stories, by the way,
no,
right?
no, I don't,
Just,
I think
just,
that's the answer.
just
That's the lie part though.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying just a generic overview. I mean, it is a lie. I totally agree with you. It is, right?
Um, I think there's this shiny layer
Yeah,
that attracts us.
yeah.
And I think like moths to a flame, we're all attracted to that same, that sort of effervescence and that sort of fluorescence of whatever is illuminating your kind of your attention. But it's so shrouded in metrics of vanity and success, kind of like social media. You know how companies are tracking likes over engagement. That's funny for people who work in social media. They'll really understand that as well. I think the lie really kind of in a summary, and I think that really being vulnerable is what makes the lie the ability for me to kind of appreciate and understand it and do something about it. So if I don't make it personal, then it's not meaningful, and therefore I'm not actually addressing it. Um, I think if you look at headlines these days, right? And of course, I mean, to each their own, but most headlines these days in the startup world are centered and almost singularly focused on how much money somebody raised.
Yeah,
And those numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
yeah.
And so as I talk about a lie a year or so ago, the fodder for that lie continues to grow as well, right? Why do we do what we do? Is it because we're going to get our name on a headline and it's going to have a bunch of zeros attached to it? Is it because we got this really spicy sort of opening statement, which includes, a Y Combinator or Techstars attached to it? Or is it because we saw something and we just kind of stuck to our guns? And let me answer it in a slightly different way. When I started Digital Street, I didn't do it because I wanted to solve the digital agency gap in the market, right? I didn't think that, there was a big gap, and
Yeah.
that we later realized that there's an opportunity for us. And now some of the best companies in the world want to hire that agency. New York University is our client, Unilever is our client, Dubai Chamber, ICRC in Pakistan, like these are, and they work with us currently. And I think we didn't really have a focus at that point, right? But I think when I think about the lie, I think about why do we really do what we do? And do we really are we asked to really think about, not because we have to fill it into an Excel sheet or a homework assignment from a program, but really kind of introspect and think deeply, okay, what is my purpose? What really drives my thought process? Is it because I'm going to have a nice car at the end of this? I'll get an exit, whatever. And everyone's motivated by different things. I think the lie is that we're all kind of required to think about things in a structured way, which is have an idea, get into a program, get a ton of money, get some advisors, and, kind of follow this sort of path that previously used to be graduate from school, graduate from college, get married, get a job. You know, it's a replica of, we're mimicking that same pattern, but it's just there are different metrics and different steps in that journey now. And I think for me, it's like, the idea of failure was something that I was first introduced to by Acumen, and they used to celebrate failure. And I didn't really understand what failure meant because, until because, our lives and especially in our culture, failure was a terrible thing. You can't fail. If you don't get an A or a B, and I was a mediocre student, by the way, so I was really breaking the rules there. Sorry, Dad. But failure is just not another thing. And so it's a big culture shift for a lot of people. And so, we approach failure from a different point of view. But I think when we arrive at that point, when we realize that it's okay to fall forward, or even okay to fall backward, if we've kind of worked hard enough to kind of create some net behind us, or, a community of people that will catch us, or whatever, whether it's your family, friends, or a good team, you ultimately need to really be able to kind of reconcile that everything that you've amassed up till that point, it's only relevant is as relevant as you make it. So, just today I was interviewing someone for a job, and, they hadn't prepared. And I just said to them one thing that Techstars said to me the other day. It's like, you get what you put in.
Yeah.
So if you come, half-cocked and you're kind of looking for a big win, it's not going to happen. But you need to really have clarity of purpose. And you can be super smart. You can have a great career and fantastic ecosystem. But you have to be really true to yourself, because, the hardest thing to deal with in this is the depression that comes with not succeeding perpetually, but hiding it from other people, especially people who trust you with their lives, like your wife or your kids or anyone who's dependent on you,
Yeah.
And so for me, I think the thing I was battling, and through that article, I was able to start addressing it, was depression, and a very deep and a very dark depression that basically started to kind of cloud my judgment in what do I consider to be success and what do I consider to be important. And being able to find that medium between the two was really the challenge. Having that question was great. And I think I mentioned, like, I was doing this podcast with two of my buddies, Abe and Farokh, last year, the Pivotal show. And it just started off as like just a casual chat between the three of us, because we were bored, we missed each other, we couldn't meet. And so we just did a Zoom call, and we decided, like, let's do this and get people on, like kind of like you're doing now. And just sort of turned into something. And it was fun because we got all these cool people to come in. Through that, we developed this kind of narrative that, we have something that we can all kind of put together, and maybe other people can benefit from it somehow. And so let's just offer our honest, just BS-free selves. And sorry, it's a long drawn-out answer, but I think ultimately what I'm really trying to say is that you really have to kind of ask yourself three questions. Why am I doing this? What drives me to do it? And how long can I do it before I realize that I need to change it?
I think there's another angle to it. Maybe it's not that much of a lie as it is kind of like something hidden behind a curtain, right? That most people don't realize, because all this startups and ecosystem and all these buzzwords that we hear every day. In Pakistan, it's here on a daily basis, right? That somebody's raised this much, somebody's raised this much. A lot of startups who actually don't even know what an incubation center is and where to go about, and how to reach people, right? And for them to be reading all this kind of news, it's already too discouraging. That's another thing, that investors are there, right? Venture capital firms, they are there to make money. It's not they're not
The business.
yeah, it's a business, right? So it's more of a hype kind of thing, which people fall for, actually. Chale, Zohair, I've got another meeting in about 5 minutes now, right? It was great
Yeah,
talking to you. I hope we can do it again sometime. I
inshallah.
really enjoy what you had to say. You've got a lot to say, by the way. Your dad was talking.
You have to kind of know your weaknesses to kind of conquer them. I'm still working on it.
Chale, next time you are in Karachi, right? Hit me up. We should get together, have dinner.
Absolutely. Oh,
chat.
my pleasure. It would absolutely. And I'm really grateful that you kind of reached out, and I'm really proud of what you're doing. I think it takes a lot of to be consistent and to kind of keep this going. And I wish you the best of luck with the startup talks, and inshallah, whatever comes out of it, I hope it's greater than you could have possibly imagined.
Thank you. Thank you, Zohare. Best of
Take
luck.
care and have a wonderful day. Assalamu
Allah
alaikum.
Hafiz. Wa alaikum salam.